What is up,
Hey, good afternoon. How are you doing, Brian?
man? How are you?
I'm doing well. Thanks for
Good.
coming on today to the Billion Bet podcast.
Yeah, man. Absolutely. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Of course. So, hey, if we just dive right into it, I'd love to talk about the new software you're developing for schools across the nation.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm definitely not the one developing it. We have smarter people to do that, right? But it's something I am intimately involved with and helping with, and getting it out there not only to schools, businesses, organizations, airports, everything.
So, what exactly does the software aim to solve?
Yeah, it's a pretty interesting little situation that we have with it. So, what it solves is a more effective and efficient streamline of communication. So, it bridges the gap of communication between first responders and those they're responding to. So, there's a heavy emphasis on first responders. There's a heavy emphasis like on the critical incidents. However, I did about 2 years. I worked at a manufacturing plant called Ferrara Candy
Okay.
there in Illinois,
Okay.
and it's crazy. I never thought I would ever land in manufacturing and all, but I was hired to be, kind of help out more in the leadership role of things. And they hired me in there. The title that I had was a production manager, so I oversaw the production of this company. And it was really to get vested interest by the supervisors to get back into the groove of it and get production up and running. I never knew how dangerous it was to make gummy worms.
Really?
Okay, I
And
mean, it is insane. And there's injuries all the time, and people, big manufacturer place, concrete floors, there's hoses, there's equipment, there's everything all over the place. Then you got forklifts driving through the aisles, big old trays of candy and food. I mean, it's just insane. It's madness. And so when we first got this platform AIM, I had been working with this company on another project, and then this program was introduced to us. It was first pitched to us as like a school platform, a school safety platform. And when we took a look at it, we had the company that owned it and owned the rights to it do a demo for us. Me being 10 years LAPD, first responder, translating that to my entrepreneurship journey, then working with manufacturing, seeing the incidents that were going on there, understanding about safety and response and all this stuff. I was like, guys, this is so much more than just schools. So it's a safety platform that works in quite frankly everywhere, and it really does enhance 911 dispatch and being able to deploy resources where an emergency is needed, but also internal communication as well as for a business to run effectively.
okay. And are you guys currently testing this in schools and warehouses?
Oh, it's fully deployed, my
It's
friend.
fully
So
deployed.
yeah, we've handled now a little over 15,000 plus incidents, live incidents,
Wow.
including an active shooter call that happened in Spanish Fork, Utah at the high school. And we're in several hundred different locations, schools mainly, but we have Utah State Capitals on board. Salt Lake City Airport right now is looking at implementing. We've got for our candies using this. I'm going to be meeting with another major manufacturer out in Texas on this, and then we have in Northern California, we have entire counties that are coming on. So Tehama County School District, their entire school district came on board. We're right now rolling out the implementation there, and their county buildings and major mill factories and manufacturings are starting to come online as well. So they're looking at this as the ability, the unique aspect of this platform is we can take any blueprint of any location and we can turn it into a live interactive mapping system directly onto Google Maps. So
And
people can identify where they're at. They can see where a problem's at. If there was a 911 call that came in, I'm doing this other breakdown here. I'm going to probably do it tonight, where it showed a gas tanker truck crashed at the gas station. Big fire went up. And in a situation like that, if that city had AIM, then the person, the employee at that gas station would have been able to send the security video that was showing that truck crash to dispatch. Dispatch would have been able to deploy fire department exactly where that truck's at, where that fire's at, identify where the fire hydrant's at, identify where the resources need to be. And the fire department and emergency personnel would have been able to deploy a lot more effectively on that to try to de-escalate that situation as fast as possible. So it's adding that bridge of that communication for a more effective and efficient response.
yeah, now everybody has cell phones, so you might as well utilize them properly.
Well, and that's the key right there is properly, right? So a lot of times in these schools, especially, some of the training that a lot of the teachers are going through is they're being told, stay off of your phones, right? Call 911, but then we need you to stay off your phones. The reason for that, some of the reason for that, I'm not going to say the full reason, but some of the reason for that is you cannot control the narrative during one of these incidents when everybody's on their phone going on social media saying somebody's shooting up the school. I'm hearing people scream. The problem with that is when that starts hitting the market, hitting social, it leaves all of us who are not there and reading this up to our imagination and up to assumption. Mm-hmm. So it creates more chaos. So because this is a cloud-based platform and it's on a closed channel, so security is very tight on this, we're actually inviting people to use their phones, but use it the right way. So use the platform that's on their phone to connect directly to first responders, connect directly to those who are going to help, and give the information needed for them to know exactly where they need to go, what they need to do, and how they need to be able to execute on it.
I see. So on the first responders side of it, do they have like a computer application that people can send right in to their database?
So what's good, what's really cool about the company is it created a foundation that any school, organization, business, county building, whatever, that adopts our platform, the company actually donates the platform for free to all first responders.
Wow.
So it's unlimited users, right? So we can, if for Tehama, for example, Tehama County, it's in a rural area. So one of the schools has their local police department on it, their local fire department on it, but then they also have a Cal Fires on it. They have a fish and game warden on there because those people are closer to the school than some of the police departments. And then we're also going to onboard CHP on there as well, because as they're going up and down the freeway, the highway there, if a call comes out and it's in one of those schools right off the highway, if they're close by, they're going to get it. And to your point, how? On their laptops within their vehicle, on their phones, anything that's an electronic device, PC, iOS, whatever it might be, it can go on those
so I have
phones and things.
I have a question for you. I'm not familiar with the radio space of the first responders. Would this by sending them a notification on their phone, would that drastically cut down on time? Say if they're on the wrong channel, they might not hear the call come in. Is this
so that's a great question. So to your point on that, what happens is, so police departments, fire departments, we all run jurisdictions. We have certain areas that we are assigned to. Now, when you get more into the rural area, a lot of times the fire department and the police department will be on the same channel. Like, okay, the fire department can hear for a call for service for the police department as much as the police department can hear a call for service for the fire department. But when you're working in some of the more urban and metropolitan areas, they're two different systems. So like when I was with LAPD, I would never hear a medical emergency call or a fire call come out over our air, okay, unless LAFD's dispatch spoke to LAPD's dispatch and said, hey, we're going to need police units to get here to control traffic. Then we would be deployed. And the other part of that is CHP, for example, California Highway Patrol. If they're going up and down the freeway in Tehama County and there's an active shooter at a school in one of those counties, the police department, when those students or teachers call 911, they're going to notify their local police department of what's going on. Mm-hmm. And probably one of those local police departments or one of the police officers, and it's probably even part of their training, the dispatch might go to a what we would call like a simplex channel or a all broadcast channel, and broadcast that out to all first responders in the area to know there's an active alert or an active incident going on at this location. So it does take time to start connecting those dots via the radio. Radio is imperative. We want it. We always want to have that. This just makes it so that that notification immediately goes to everyone within that area that they're assigned to, everyone within that location or surrounding that location to get to that place as fast as humanly possible.
Okay. Have you heard of Pulse Point before?
Pulse Point. I can't say I have. It doesn't ring a bell.
Pulse Point is a app. I know in Naperville it works, but it's mainly for fire departments. And it'll show like if there's a car accident or if somebody is in need of CPR and AED, it'll send like an alert to your phone. You could sign up for that. Is this something that AIM might possibly be available for civilians as well?
It will be, just not right now.
Okay.
So right now, even in schools, students don't get the platform, only the staff does.
Only the staff.
So right now, where it's being deployed is by those who are trained and are responsible and accountable for handling these situations. So like teachers, right? They're trained to do the drills and they're accountable for their students and stuff while they're there in school. So only the teachers, staff members will get this. There will come a time, and we are looking at some of these counties right now to deploy this on, where there'll be a civilian-based type platform that allows, instead of calling 911, you can press that alert. And what we can do is essentially map out in sections an entire city. Wow. And we can make every single home and street, block by block, interactive. So the breakdown that I'm going to do with this tanker truck that blew up on fire is I'm showing how that 911 call comes out, or that employee, if they had the platform, would be able to trigger the fire alert, and dispatch would be able to see via the camera or photos, whatever, be able to see on AIM where that's at and highlight that on the map. Because what you hear in the video is they say cross streets. It's on Chatham and Maine, on the cross streets of Chatham and Maine. And in the video, and this was a A&E TV show called Night Watch, I think it is, you can see paramedics responding, and they're looking, and then they can see the fire, and they're like, oh, that's right off of the interstate. Like, we got to get over there. So even then, you know, you get these cross streets, you get a general location of where it's at, and you start heading that direction, and you have to be looking for signs of a fire or for signs of an accident.
I never even considered that, I guess, that the human error aspect.
Correct. Well, not only that, but what people don't think about is, you know, we tell people stay off your dang phones when you're driving because of distracted driving, right? Yeah. You can only imagine running lights and sirens, going as fast as you can, doing this, looking around for the whatever signals you can see to try to find this incident. We're so distracted, and we put the community at risk. When we're running lights and sirens, right? It's called, in the city, LA, it's called code 3. When we're running code 3 to a call, it's because it's a critical emergency. Somebody's life is at stake, and we got to get there as fast as possible. So we're driving super fast, and there's training on this, obviously, where you got to clear intersections. Don't go in an intersection too fast. You know, that's why you'll see some of these units slow down and then they make their way through. But there's been so many times where a car will run a red light or go through that green light, not hearing the lights and sirens, and T-bone a paramedic or T-bone a police officer, or a police officer T-bones a civilian, because we're distracted trying to find where we need to go. This just makes it, because our patent in this platform allows us to put these blueprints and these maps onto Google Maps. It allows for that directional orientation and know it's on this corner, it's in this place, and they can start getting very familiar with landmarks and things like that.
That's incredible.
It's really awesome, man. Really, really awesome. I invite everybody. I've been doing a lot of posts on my Instagram and on LinkedIn with video breakdowns of how the platform works. And I literally invite everybody to take a look and reach out if you have questions. But it's a game changer. You know, 911 was created back, I believe, in the 60s. And there's been some changes, but all in all, to what 911 is, you still got to pick up that phone and call 911. For the civilian aspect, it's great. Unfortunately, when there's a big call, I don't know if you've ever gone through this, where you're put on hold or you're disconnected and you can't get through. That's a sucky feeling.
I have not.
I have a couple of times, and it's a sucky feeling. I went through it in Naperville. There was a bank robbery going on right there off of 59 and 95th, and my kid's school was put on lockdown. I was in the area, so I got a notification from Naperville because I did that, you know, the first responder notification, whatever it is, let you know when streets are closed and stuff. Well, I was in the area. I was at the grocery store up there. There's a Jewel Law School grocery store over there. So I was there, and when I was leaving, I saw the car that fit the description in the call. Okay. And I'm like, leave it to me, dude. Freaking former cop, just a crap sandwich that just always runs into crap, right? So I called 911 to let them know, hey, I got a possible suspect sitting over here at the gas station. And I was put on hold and then disconnected.
Seriously?
Yeah, and I'm like,
no urgency.
Well, it's not that there's no real urgency, but what's going on is because that notification went out, and I got another notification about my kid's school going on lockdown. Every parent in that neighborhood is calling 911 to find out what's going on.
It's just they're overwhelmed. That's
right. It just floods 911. So what happens now is, if something was going on at that school, those teachers are going to experience the same thing. But now, because our platform is an emergency rated app, the minute a teacher at that location shows that they're locked down, and if they need help, it goes directly to dispatch. It goes ahead of the line, and they can communicate via chat, or dispatch can call them from the platform directly from their computer and get a hold of that teacher right there without having to worry about the lines being all flooded or
So you can
down.
establish communication lines through this app as well.
Yeah, 100%.
Wow, that's incredible. That's
It's awesome, dude.
That's life-changing. You're going to save a lot of lives with this.
That's the goal. We are, we looked at it as a company and said, these active shooters, man, it's been going on. Combine, right, was one of the big ones. And we've done all this training. We've done all this fortification, but yet they still happen. People are, and it's still getting worse. Like people are still getting hurt.
Mm-hmm.
And so we looked at it as, what are some of the kind of gaps that are still there? And one of it is understanding where you need to go, how you need to get there, how fast you can get there with clarity. So as an officer, if we're responding to a call like that and we've never been to that location, we're going to show up and start looking to find out where the front of that location is or find a door. And we go in blind, right? We're going in absolutely blind. We're left to our assumptions and imagination. We get in there and we start handling business without knowing really where we're going. This allows us now to see, as teachers are checking in and saying whether they're safe or not safe, we can see where all the not safe is and deploy all of our resources right there to eliminate that threat as fast as possible. So having that clarity and the effectiveness of a response is really what I think is a game changer.
And giving you that floor plan also just gives you a little bit of edge.
Big time. Big time.
Definitely. So what got you to switch from being a full-time flipper to deciding to build out this application?
Well, I'm still flipping, right?
Okay.
I'm still doing the real estate game. I'm not flipping as much. I mean, from 2014 to about 2020, I mean, my wife and I were going nuts. I mean, we were buying 10 to 12 homes a month at the peak and just flipping houses left and right. Well, at the point where, especially myself, almost lost my damn mind because I had too many projects going on and too much happening. And I wasn't running a full-fledged business. I didn't have the assistants I needed. I didn't have transaction coordinators that I needed. I sat back, analyzed what was going on, and my mentors especially stepped in and started helping me build that business out a lot better. So I learned this skill about, how to take a business from zero to a hero, you can say, and how to build that out. And what was really interesting was I started getting these calls to be on podcasts and YouTube channels and speak at events, and was being asked, like, how did you do it? Right? How did you go from a pivot of a career in law enforcement, first responder, to real estate investor and to running a successful business? And when I say successful, that's successful in my eyes, right? I mean, plenty of people can look at my business and be like, dude, you were up a creek, but I was making more money than I knew. And we were able to increase our income like no other, from being a police officer to that. So, I mean, for us, it was a success, and it still is. And what it turned out to be was we ran really hard, really fast, learned how to slow down, organize, and build steadily and build an empire. And from there, I started speaking and started getting asked to speak at these events. That then in turn of people calling me and asking for help. And I found myself starting to consult. Like I started helping other business owners put systems in place that I've learned from my mentors and kind of give back and show the systems that I was using, processes that I was using, analyzing what they were doing, and realizing from my mistakes that, hey, you're going to make the same. Don't do that. Do this. And I started just helping a lot. And that turned into like a consulting business. And so from there, that's how I got the position with Farrar Manufacturing. The VP of sales at the time was, somebody I knew, and he needed some help with the supervision. And I told him, it was funny. He said, hey, kind of a left field idea here, but what do you think about coming over and helping me at the plant? And I said, dude, I don't know manufacturing. It's not going to happen. I was like, no, thank you. Right. This is right around COVID too. And so I was like, I'm not doing this. Like, you have to be an engineer. Like, I'm not an engineer. I'm a freaking cop from LA. And when he told me that, really what it is about helping out his supervisors in the leadership aspect and building those people up to get back into production and kind of start moving and be motivated. I was like, okay, that I can do. Cause I feel good working with people. I love working with people.
Okay.
And helping like create a vision and set goals and execute and see progression and stuff. Like, I love doing that. So I started doing that. That worked out really well. We turned production around like no other. It was fast incremental increases there. And then I got called to do other things as well with other companies, and it turned into this consulting gig.
What specifically were you implementing to make these people more productive?
as well, I'll put it to you straight. To be very transparent, it was just proper leadership.
Okay.
And it wasn't at a fault of leadership of the plant manager or anything. Plant manager is awesome. I love this guy to death. Like I've never connected with somebody on that type of level. This dude turned into one of my mentors, and just everything he did was awesome. And then I had this other buddy who had been in manufacturing for a very long time, super, super smart as well, and learning from him. But I went in there with the mentality of knowing that these guys have been kind of left to their own vices. They didn't have the support. They didn't have the resources they needed. The previous person that was in there was very technical and not very people oriented. So when there was a problem, he would just step in and do it, which would then in turn cause these supervisors and everybody else to be like, well, what the hell am I doing here? Like, if this guy's just going to show up and do it, he's not even teaching us how to do it. Like, why am I here? So I grew up with a father who spent 41 and a half years, 42 years with the LA City Fire Department. He was an EMS captain, big time leader. I mean, this guy his name's well known through the city of LA. He would teach us things like, in a totem pole, everybody thinks the leader's at the top. He's like, but in reality, if it's a good totem pole, the leader's at the bottom. And that leader's holding that foundation to hold everybody up and support them so they can see into the vision, they can see into the future and see the vision of what they can become. And he would always tell me that, like, and we had this conversation today, actually, that he reminded me of it. When new paramedics would come into his battalion, he'd sit them down and say, your number one job, your absolute number one job is to make me look good. And the way you make me look good is by you just doing your very best, and come to me anytime you need something. So he was always for the guys and the gals that were out there on the floor working. And he would go back to the upper management and, they would give these policies and stuff. And he would always say, as long as my guys can execute that, we'll do that. So I did the same thing. I went to that floor. I knew these guys were deprived, and I put them all together. And I said, I'm just here to help. Don't look at me as a manager, as a supervisor. I even made sure to be transparent, saying, I don't know anything about manufacturing. So you're going to have to teach me. So I'm going to rely very heavily on your skill set, on your talent, and on your ability to communicate what's happening. So I, in turn, can get you the resources that you need. I'm going to bat for you. And when they realized, as I showed up every day and every night sometimes, because it's 24/7 plant, they started realizing, like, okay, Bryan's putting his words, he's putting it where he said he's going to do it, right? And he's showing up. And when I just continue to do that and prove that to them, and every time they needed something, I got it for them, or I fought it for them. Anytime the plant or the senior levels executives came down and said, this is what we need to move to, I understood what needed to be executed, but I would always go to them and say, this is what they're looking at, but how do we do it? Versus, guys, this is what they're asking, so get it done.
Yeah.
I would always ask. Go ahead.
That phrase, just showing up, that it means so much for everything. Like personally, I've been having to help my buddies lately. They have an Amazon company, and just getting people to show up, getting people to drive the trucks, keeping everything running. There's a lot to it that you don't always see at the surface level. Yeah.
And it's interesting, but it's not that hard. I mean, think about it. Like, just show up.
Yeah.
Like, get your ass out of bed and show up. And, like, by doing that, people, especially in today's world, in today's economy, in today's world, we're over the bullshit. We're over this fluff, bureaucracy, bureaucratic, diplomatic, whatever act you want to talk about. We're done with it. You can tell as a human race, we are tired of the bullshit. We're tired of the lies. We want somebody that's going to get the job done and show the hell up. And it's not that difficult, man. The way you can stand out from anybody else in a crowd is by being the person that actually shows up. That's all it takes, man. Joe Rogan talks about this. Goggins talks about this, is having the discipline to just show up. And that's what I did with these guys. And it was awesome. The people that are working at Ferrara are phenomenal. I mean, I literally cried when I knew I was leaving to go on to this other venture. Because I ended up just absolutely falling in love with the people so much. They're hard workers, solid workers. They're trying to do their absolute best every single day. That's all they want to do, is their best every day. And when they finally felt that they had ownership, meaning a project would come down the line and we would go to them and I would say, this is the project. is there a way to execute on this? And if there's no way to execute on it, well, then by all means, I'm going to go back and say, we have to come up with a different plan. And that's a tough decision, right? That's a tough talk. I as a outsider production manager, going to senior levels execs and saying, I got to have a better way. Like, this is why we're not going to be able to execute this. And what you're asking is going to take a lot more resources, a lot more money, a lot more activity. And we just don't have that right now. But the key to this is I was always showing up with the fact that we couldn't do it this way, but I would show up with 2 or 3 ways of how we could possibly do it. Yeah. And that's a big play for any type of management or leadership. You don't just show up with the problem. You show up with the problem, and behind that problem, you tell them 3 different ways, 2 to 3 different ways of how you can possibly solve that problem. And then you allow that mentor, senior level exec, whoever it is that's above you, to say, I like this idea, and let's switch it with this, and maybe put a little bit of the ideal 1 into ideal 2, because they're going to know a lot more. They have a lot more experience, right? So by adding those 3 solutions, the hope is you can come up together with a really good solution and then go back to the team and say, does this work? And continue working towards solving that problem.
Yeah. Being able to not just like shut somebody's idea down, but redirect them to maybe more effective ways of doing things really can increase a business's revenue by tenfold.
I'm telling you right now, you want to ruin a cult, you want to shut down a culture or the morale on the floor, shut somebody's ideas down. If somebody literally has the balls to come to you as a leader and give you an idea, okay? And you got to think, first of all, everybody's in a different frame and different state of mind. But if there's somebody, a subordinate or somebody below you, to come to you and have the balls to say, hey, I got this idea that I think will help us be more productive, and you shut that person down, you will never get a single ounce of innovation or another idea from that person again. Not only will you not get it from that person, but that person will go and talk to their little circle of influence of friends that are on that floor or in that company and tell them about their experience, which will then bleed into those other groups that'll say, I ain't never going to that guy if that's what I don't want to go through that crap. And you have completely, by just knocking them down, and you might even do it politely. You might even be like, hey man, I really appreciate it, but we're not going to go that direction. Thank you though. And then go somewhere else. Gone. It's gone. It's absolutely, you completely destroyed it. You have to be able as a leader to understand the position that you're in, and to be able to say to yourself, slow down. This is, again, I've got to give props to my dad, who gave props to his dad, my pop-up. Slow down, be patient, look at the details, and solve the problem. Like, as a leader, you have to, if somebody comes to you with something, slow down, pay attention, listen to the details, and solve the problem. And if somebody's coming to you with an idea, and let's say it's even the most ridiculous, like it's just so stupid, it's so far gone. Mm-hmm. I always will still say, that's a pretty damn good idea, man. Like, I don't have time right now to talk about this, but meet me after work, or meet me like at 4 o'clock before the end of shift. Let's talk about that idea. And I want to know how you feel that can be executed, to see if that might be something that'll work. And give them the time of day.
Yeah. The time of day and the positive reinforcement.
Right. Because even if it's a piece of crap idea, let's say it doesn't work, it's nothing. What'll end up happening is that person who's coming up in the company will still know that you want to listen. You can give input as to why it might not work, which will then allow that person's brain to continue to work to try to solve more problems. What that's telling me as a leader, a manager, whatever, is I've got people working on the floor that are trying to be innovative to make this more productive. Why would you ever want to cut that?
No, you don't. You need the creativity. You need to bring new ideas to the space, constantly changing and improving.
Yeah. If you're trying to progress as a company, I have a strong belief in this. I've been listening. I've been on this really big kick with Simon. How do you say his last name? Sinek? He's the one. He's got the most viewed TEDx talk. I can never say his last name right, but his talk, Know Your Why, and then Leaders Eat Last is another great book that he just wrote. And then the most recent one is I believe it's called The Infinite Game. And what he talks about, and what he's been talking about lately, is corporations, companies, leaders, they play two different types of games, a finite game or an infinite game. The finite game is very revenue driven, very kind of shareholder driven, very results like I got to win, I got to win, I got to win. And the infinite, so that's the finite game. The infinite game is, no, we just got to get better.
Yeah.
We got to continually to progress. We got to constantly get better. And he gives a great example that he did a seminar with, he went and spoke to a bunch of leaders. I think it was at Microsoft.
Okay.
And at the time they were competing against Mac. And Microsoft, the whole theory, the whole meeting and seminar with Microsoft was how to beat Macintosh, Apple. And then when he went and did the talk with Apple, the whole theme around the seminar with Apple was, how do we help teachers become better? How do we help people communicate better? And there was nothing about competition.
Just being better, improving. That's all. That's what I try to strive for, honestly. It's just 1% a day. My dad, he always says, just nickel and dime them, nickel and dime. You don't have to get rich overnight, but if you nickel and dime them long enough, eventually it'll stack.
Yeah. Yeah. There's another great quote. It's by Zig Ziglar. I use it a lot. It always says, you can have whatever you want in life if you just help enough people get what they want in life. And so I'm not saying that people are nickels and dimes. Everybody's a value is huge, but if you help enough of those nickel and dimes, you'll ultimately get whatever it is that you want out of life as well.
That's Red Suit Realtor, Scott. He really has put that into my head a lot, is to help as many people as you possibly can.
Yep. Because
ultimately helping those people, you just make new friendships, new connections. Nothing bad ever happens from helping somebody.
Yeah, 100%. It's interesting. There was a talk a long time ago by Gary Vaynerchuk, Gary V. I was listening to him for a while when in the midst of my losing my head, losing my mind during the real estate stuff, when we were doing all that stuff, doing all those deals. He said at this one talk, it was at the time when everybody was saying they have the new Uber idea and the new social media idea and this and that. There was like this moment where like, I've got the new Airbnb. And he stood up on stage, and I remember he said, everybody sit here and says, I'm going to be the next Zuck. I'm going to be the next, Elon Musk or whatever it is. And what he said was, somebody in this room, honestly, is probably going to be the next billionaire. It behooves you to be kind. This was when he was on his very big time on the kind kick. He says, because you don't know who you're standing next to. And the reason why that I remember that talk so much and why it hit me so hard was in the police department, they would teach me and all of us probationaries, the ones that got out of the academy, now we're going through the training. They would tell us, listen, it's important that you always mind your P's and Q's in the hallways of the police department and the police station. And it's very important that you're respectful to everybody, because the person that you probably hate or the officer that you're getting pissed off at, that officer the next day could possibly be your supervisor. Yeah. And so you got to be mindful of that. Well, so when I remembered that when Gary Vee was talking, and it made me kind of realize, like, you don't know who the next, billionaire is. You don't know who the next Musk is. You don't, as far as I know, you're the next Elon Musk. You're the next freaking Frank Zuckerberg. And you hit me up on Instagram. We met at, the Red Suit Realtor. We met at one of his events. You reached out. I thought you're a great guy.
Thank you.
And we talked for a little bit, and I said, yeah, hit me up. I was nowhere going to tell you don't, but I look at everybody as like, dude, you can be the next person that calls me who's now have $1 billion business and say, Bryan, I really liked what your mentality and what you did. I could use your help over here, and you give me a damn job, which I might need.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So it's very important that even in leadership roles, when you think you've made it because you're some big manager or some C-level executive, right? It's super important that you realize that whoever you're in charge of in leading, one of those people that you're in charge of in leading might be the next big thing. And depending on how you treat them will ultimately leave a lasting impact on their lives, right? So serving others, helping others it always comes back. It's always reciprocal.
Yeah, definitely. Putting other people first really helps. And even just with the podcast, I just want to connect with as many people as possible, learn from, the greats, and see what other value I can provide to people, really.
It's awesome, man. Yeah.
Thank you. Well, hey, Bryan, we're starting to run out of time here, but I appreciate you coming on the podcast today, and I look forward to talking to you in the future.
Absolutely, brother. Looking forward to seeing all the success you end up growing here, man. It's a great job.
Thank you.